Hey everyone, let me tell you a story about stepping up. Because sometimes the bar we set for ourselves isn't high enough, especially when it comes to serving God. There was a young carpenter named Elias who worked in a workshop in a bustling city. Now Elias was an okay worker. His projects were good enough to sell, but nothing special. He didn't sharpen his tools often, and honestly, he didn't give his work much thought. It was just a job to him. One day the master of the workshop, an old man named Reuben, walked over to him. Reuben had seen it all: dedicated workers, lazy ones, and those who were somewhere in between, like Elias. Reuben asked, "Elias, is this the best you can do?" Elias shrugged and said, "It's fine. It works, and the customers buy it. Why do more?" Reuben looked at him for a moment and said something that stuck. "Elias, you're not just working for me. You're not even working for the customers. You're working for God, whether you realize it or not. So tell me, would you give this to him as your best?" That hit Elias hard, but he didn't show it. He went home that night, and those words wouldn't leave his mind. "Would you give this to God as your best?" Now let me pause right here, I said, looking at the group. How many of us go through life like Elias, just doing enough? Maybe it's school, sports, work, or even how we treat others. We think, this is good enough. But ask yourself, would you call it your best if you were giving it to God? The next day, Elias came back to the workshop with a new attitude. He decided to sharpen his tools, pray over his work, and really focus on every detail. At first it was hard. It felt like extra work, and no one seemed to notice. But over time, something changed. People began to see the difference in Elias's projects. They weren't just good, they were excellent. His carvings were smoother, his measurements more precise, and his work had this sense of care and beauty that it never had before. Even Reuben noticed. A few months later, he gave Elias the biggest challenge of his career, building the new altar for the village church. Elias was stunned. This wasn't just a job. This was something that would stand in God's house for years. Elias worked day and night on that altar, pouring his heart into it. Every cut of wood and every stroke of his chisel became a prayer. When he finally finished, it wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a reflection of his faith and dedication to God. I leaned forward and said, "So here's the question I have for you. Are you working like Elias before or after she changed? Are you settling for good enough? Or are you stepping up your bar and giving your best to God?" Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." That means your homework, your job, the way you treat your family and friends, all of it matters to God. God doesn't want perfection, but He does want your best. And when you step up your bar, you'll see that God steps in to help you go even higher. The room was quiet for a moment, and then I smiled. So what's it going to be? Are you ready to step up your bar and give your best for Him?